first time people are in the world are realizing that yes, the money can be moved between two bank accounts in the country in 30 seconds. The conversion, the compliances, everything can happen 30 seconds. Public infrastructure of like NPCI, Aadhaar, and what the fintech startups and the banks are able to innovate on top of that. So public-private partnership to create an innovation at this scale, I think it's a kind of a really case study for the world in that sense. India is doing wonders. So all the techies will not get next 10 years. They're going to miss big time if they're not in India for next 10 years, in my assessment.
Dilip, you're a Mumbai boy. You're born and brought up here. First, let's ease it. What makes you believe that Mumbai could be the startup capital of India?
You know, when we were starting NPCI, and obviously, we had data center in Bombay to start with. But we started first data center in Chennai. And when we were looking at, I think the natural choice emerged to have the R&D center, tech center, is in Hyderabad, actually. And, I'm an engineering graduate from Bombay. And there are very good colleges, actually, in Bombay. But somehow, I think the engineering talent which the companies like us required are present in Chennai, Hyderabad, and Bangalore also. But Bangalore obviously is unaffordable, right, for us because, all this, I was hearing Neeraj, and a lot of money has made the talent unaffordable technically. So, now, but, last 1 year, we have started, we had only the product marketing and business development divisions and the other finance and other divisions in Bombay. Our headquarters happens to be in Bombay because of the RBI, the banks and everything. But we have started a tech center now in Bombay. Let's see if we are able to find resources in affordable cost.
Yeah, okay. So that's like a big one. To everyone in this room, how many of you are carrying cash today? Paisa, hardcore cash. हाँ ठीक से उठा लो शर्माओ मत अगर cash तो cash is king.
See, this is the opportunity for us.
Yeah. So
this is the opportunity for NPCI.
How many of you are not carrying cash today? Yeah, now that is what you've done.
Yeah.
Yes, to me that is the NPCI, UPI story. Dilip, you talk about billion transaction, the possibility of having a billion transaction a day by 2025. How close are we?
In 2019, we coined this billion a day vision in NPCI in one of the offsites. And that time, when I speak about it, that time we were about 37x away. 37x away from the billion a day volume in UPI. And now we are about 3.3x away, right, from our peak day. So we are fairly close now. But that's not our potential. As a country, we have a potential about 10x from where we are right now. And let me explain you with a simple math. We have about 300 million users in India. Some of us are here. But about 3x growth in user is possible. So 900 million adult or, kind of 15 plus can actually do UPI transaction today. On a merchant side, we have about 50 million merchants, which can actually grow up to 150 million, including the self-service guys and everything. So 3x on the user side, 3x on the merchant side. If you look at the multiplier effect, easily it comes to 9x, right? And today, the 13% cash to GDP circulation, I think there is a 10x growth possible. So I think if we are at 300 million on UPI today, the true potential is 3 billion. The 1 billion a day is a short-term goal, is what we now believe in NPCI. And I think realistically, we believe that it's about 24 months to 36 months, whatever the timeline looks like. All depends on the investments in India, all depends on how the players are driving the education. But there are many things which are still required to be a billion a day.
I always believe that you could be like such a fantastic. अगर किसी भी company को 6 महीने में unicorn बनना था, they should have got you as a co-founder because the scale of tech that you built, and you've been in NPCI for the longest time if I,
So
from the start.
the RBI and government decided that no, I should be founder in NPCI. So I'm a employee number one actually.
I want you to tell us, because most of us, when we are building our products, our businesses, we think about scale and we imagine and imagine that scale. You've created from zero that scale. वो UPI जिस तरह से चलता है, जिस स्केल से चलता है, आज में भी बिलियन ट्रांजैक्शन नहीं है, but is inching towards it. How does the tech infrastructure, how does the building of that happen? Thinking
So,
also.
we have been very fortunate at the right time. We got associated with Mr. Nilekani. 2009, December, first I met him, when the UIDI was starting, and at the same time, NPCI also started, right? So I met him, and kind of, we were fairly influenced with his thought process, architecture, with him, Pramod, that, the whole open source story, right? Open architecture. And when we started earlier, the first 2-3 years, we were the buyer of technology. So we were buying solutions and we were kind of implementing. We were running it by ourselves, but we were buying predominantly. I think the 2014-15 onwards, we started building it by ourselves. So all the stack, which, whether you look at UPI, IMPS, the Aadhaar systems, the DBT, the whatever stack, Bharat Bill Pay, all has been built and operated by us now. And with last few years, we have gone back to, we had an active passive architecture, but now we have gone to active, active, active. So 3 data centers, UPI gets processed in an active mode, in a load balancing mode. And, today, while the consumer transactions looks very simple, right? Now I'm sending a money to your Shradha at the rate, whatever that UPI ID is, or scanning a merchant and paying. But the address resolution, it's a fairly complex architecture in the back end. So a one customer transaction actually is about 10 hops between NPCI and the ecosystem, because we do the address resolution, understand where his bank account is, go back, do the real-time debit, then go back, find out the beneficiary, where his account is. Today, we have done about 300 million peak UPI transactions on financial side, about 300 million non-financial side, balance inquiry and other meta APIs. So we do about over and close to now 10 billion APIs from NPCI to the ecosystem, right? 10 billion APIs we do. And fairly, I'm saying that our tech teams, our ops team, kind of, we are now trying to build an architecture which will kind of look at, while our architecture is now billion a day, we have started now thinking how do we go to 10 billion a day, right? From a consumer transaction standpoint. While we do 10 billion APIs today, we want to go to the higher up, because we believe that a lot more has to be done still from a technology standpoint, from a user awareness standpoint, from a feature standpoint. I don't think UPI's features are fully adequate to look at the full potential of 3 billion a day in that sense.
This is like massive. And I was just thinking that anyone, honestly, in our country, anyone who does this impact at scale, I would say government and GovTech and organizations like NPCI. And brings me to the question, Dilip, if you had to go back 10 years back or 15 years back, when the thinking happened and when you were doing the 0 to 1, and from 1 to this kind of numbers, because today entrepreneurs are building that 0 to 1 or 1 to 100 or 1 to million or millions. What was the thinking process when you build? Because it's mostly late. We engineer things late कि हो रहा है तब शुरू से करना चाहिए या 0 to 1 के बाद करना चाहिए, कैसे करना चाहिए?
See, I strongly believe that there is no thing called a perfect platform, right? Even today, there are many things which you talk to the consumers. They might expect something better, something more, right? So I don't think there is anything called a perfect product. I think the question is whether you are able to add not an incremental value, a significant value on a day 0. And if you believe that if you are able to add a significant value on a day 0, I think you should go to the market. I think we have, when we looked at some of the products which we have launched last, in fact, 14th year of NPCI, I think we have learned this over the period that maybe we could have done many things better, right? And take an example of IMPS, right? IMPS is one of the first real-time payments in the world, actually. We could have kept on innovating IMPS like what we do in UPI today. And technically what happened is, we were on a legacy APIs, now we are migrated. Now we will start injecting innovation back in IMPS, APS, and Bharat Bill Pay, and some of the other platforms. But if I go back, I think we could have learned to innovate faster. I think we were too bothered whether the ecosystem is able to catch up the speed of innovation or not. And ecosystem normally takes time to change their systems, because NPCI is as good as ecosystem is, right? In that sense. But I strongly believe that if you would have not had that barrier in our mind, we could have innovated much more, right? And technically that's what we are doing right now. And I think when we look at the other thing, right? The open source journey we started in 2015, and now most of I think the 95%, 98% of the transactions what flows through NPCI as are owned, operated by us. But I think the journey could have started a little earlier. I think availability of the tech resources has been a key constraint, right? Because we get the people, because 10 billion APIs, we have one of the largest AI implementation in the country. Our risk models are in the other models. We are building a co-creating architecture on AI. But what happens is the tech resources, finding a right tech people is a key challenge, in that sense. And maybe because we are very shy, we don't speak outside about NPCI, that what we do internally, how's our culture is all about. But I think we need to start now, because we need a tech talent, because we are now building for the future, and it's a nation building process. While it will take time, but I think as a country, with the government's vision, with the RBI's vision, I think we are on the right path. We might make some mistakes, but I think we are on the right path.
When you're talking, this question came to my mind, is that UPI government is, there are dialogues happening that UPI could go to different parts of the world, right? Where are we on that? And if it goes, then what goes? Does the architecture go? Does the technology go? Do we collaborate? And how do we collaborate?
So, and I think that's our Prime Minister's vision, that, while India is self-sufficient on the domestic payments now, with the innovative products like UPI, Bharat Bill Pay, the Aadhaar stack, and everything, what we do, I think the plan he had started talking about last 2-3 years now, is India's public good can be the public good of the world, right? So, and there are 2-3 things which are laid out by the government and RBI very clearly. The one is, when in a today's geopolitical situations, right? If the country wants to be self-sufficient, instead of taking the similar 5-8 years life cycle to get to that level, they can use India's stack, right? India's stack, and under the government to government and under the regulator to regulator arrangement, we are not even charging them. We are not, the stack actually goes free of cost, open source to the country. We only take the implementation support, that cost we recover. And we are looking at to support the smaller countries, even as low cost as $1 million, $2 million. The central system, entire building the stack at that price point. The second point which we are looking at is being domestically self-sufficient. Neeraj was talking about that we are going to grow next 20 years, 6 to 8%, and going to be the second largest economy. We need to have the control on the cross-border as well, right? And there are 2 initiatives in that. One is when the Indians are going abroad, they are able to, obviously these are all long-term projects, it takes long time, but we are patient, right? We are not in a hurry. And the second is the diaspora, or the money movement between the 2 bank accounts in 2 countries, right? And I think the Singapore-India corridor, right? I think first time people in the world are realizing that, yes, the money can be moved between 2 bank accounts in the country in 30 seconds. The conversion, the compliances, everything can happen 30 seconds, right? Flat. So I think it's a great vision to have. It might take a little longer now. We have G20 presidency, and I'm sure while we keep on demonstrating the stack, the capability to the countries that are visiting us. Whether they take stack or not, I don't know, but at least they will take an inspiration from India to build the digital public infrastructures, in my assessment, because they are seeing that what kind of consumer surplus it has created, taking the DPI approach instead of a profiteering or the private approach. And here, the second part is, the public infrastructure of like NPCI, Aadhaar, and what the fintech startups and the banks are able to innovate on top of that. So public-private partnership to create an innovation at this scale. I think it's a kind of a really case study for the world in that sense.
Do you know, when you were saying this, I remember like, yes, of course, is that I think 2 or 3 weeks back, I was in Delhi moderating this session. All these government delegates had come G20 ke liye from across the 20 nations. And there was this UPI presentation being made, right, like by the government. And I saw all the government officials, like from across different parts of the world, जैसे होता है ना video, they were taking video clips and they were recording it because the sheer impact of it is so massive.
But now, I think what we have done is now RBI allowed the officials coming to India or, the foreign numbers to be enabled for the NRE, NRO accounts. So actually now what can happen is, the people can actually transact sitting there, right? So we are now looking at some of the projects where creating the use cases where the nationals in UAE, Singapore can actually transact sitting in UAE, Singapore, buy locally also using UPI in that sense.
Dilip, very, very proud. Like we have in the startup ecosystem, at least for the last 14 years that I have been here, we've just been talking about, look at technology, look at Silicon Valley, look at Facebook, look at Google, look at Amazon. Yes, great respect, Spotify, Airbnb, we can go on. We talk about products and the agenda of technology is Silicon Valley, and I'm saying, okay, maybe it doesn't change, but we have something like this built out of our country. And that's huge, that's significant.
Yeah, but I think, we at NPCI believe that a lot more has to be done. So I think, one thing is we don't like to live in the past. We want to look at the future. And as I spoke about, there are many use cases which can actually add huge value to the economy, right? For example, using UPI for the secondary market, SEBI has launched a paper now, and we are hoping that next few months we will look at operationalizing that, provided once it has to be approved by SEBI still. But RBI has approved one block and multiple debits. Using that for commerce, right? Today, the commerce is either prepaid or postpaid, right? Postpaid in the sense the cash on delivery.
Yeah.
Can we look at the blocking and debiting multiple debit to the customer use case for the commerce? So we are talking to the commerce guys. So I think the UPI Lite, we are reaching now close to 500,000 transactions on a daily basis on UPI Lite, where we are actually first time seeing the speed of the transaction is actually faster than cash, right? Otherwise, we are looking at sub 2 second kind of a response time, and majority of the UPI Lite now we see, right now only 2 apps are enabled, the Bheem is our app and Paytm, and a couple of more apps are in the process. But we are able to compete with the speed of cash, right? So that's another thing. The third thing which we are looking at, the recurring payments. I think while the recurring payments now, even the Apple Store has now, App Store has a UPI mandate option, but they have done it not, the consumer experience is still not great. I think we want to create the recurring payment flow as you are able to scan and pay. You are able to buy the vegetable and just scan and add amount and pay. The mandates or the recurring payments instructions, payments instruction which you are giving to your bank has to be as smooth as scan and pay, right? I'm saying, so there is still a lot more to be done, Shradha. We have just started in my assessment.
So I have to ask, that a lot has to be done, and that is with great humility. Of course, a lot has been done. हम कैसे involve हो सकते हैं? Startups कैसे? यहाँ पे जो लोग आए हैं, how can they be involved with you?
So I think I think the payments, whether you look at, and we work with many startups, obviously we are not able to, we are just 1,000 people company, so we can't be physically in touch with everybody. But we are working with fintechs and startups very closely. And many startups who are, whether they are in investments, whether they are in insurance, whether into the broking, mutual funds or services, are embedding the UPI stack inside now. So I think UPI stack, whether it's a Bharat Bill Pay, right? Because the bill payment is a great use case. So we are trying to build up now the BBPS 2.0 under Nupur, who's joined as a CEO BBPS. And so we are now looking at variety of use cases to work with the ecosystem. And I think we need more. We need more startups. We need more fintechs as a country, because I think that will drive the innovation to the next level.
Is there some sorry, I'm just jumping to this question. Is there some kind of an interconnectedness that you built with RuPay, Bheem, और कौन सा है IMPS, with all, how do they talk to each other and UPI?
See, technically, the RBIs principle is they want the system to be kind of independent, right? So from a risk management standpoint, so that, for example, if UPI fails, you have the fallback of IMPS, you have the fallback of NEFT, you have the fallback of RTGS, right? So I think that's a RBI's risk management principle, and we as a regulated entity, we have to follow what RBI says, right? But now what we have done now, Shradha, is RBI has recently permitted the credit on UPI, right? And so that as a first step, the RuPay credit cards can be added to the UPI. Now SGFC is live, there are few public sector lenders are live. And I think the experience, now the credit on UPI also can give the similar UPI experience in that sense. So now we are looking at instead of physical play, right, where the physical card distribution has to happen, and there is a life cycle to that, can a fully digital onboarding journey, real-time connected customer on demand, step-up credit, right? Today the step-up credit becomes very difficult in a physical world, right? So in a UPI world, can we start giving a credit to 1,000, 2,000 rupees, right? And step it up based on his repayment histories and his spending patterns. So I think there is a lot more. I think there is a lot more we believe that can happen with the stack which NPCI has built up. And I would still go back and I say that, I think the days are gone where you aspire to go to, if you're in the technology field, go to US, go outside countries. I think India is doing wonders. So all the techies will not get next 10 years. They're going to miss big time if they're not in India for next 10 years, in my assessment.
After listening to these kind of things, one has to just let it sink in. And last two questions. One, to every builder, everyone building, you have the vantage point of not just building, being the founder of NPCI and building that scale, seeing technology up close and personal. अगर आपको बोलना है कि next 2-3 साल में opportunities आपको business opportunities, tech को use करके बड़ा बनाने का opportunities किस area में दिख रहा है?
No, I strongly believe this, that the financial services is still at very, very nascent stage.
So tell us some
very nascent stage. So for example, if you look at, the insurance penetration, if you look at in the country, if you look at the investment penetration in the country, if you look at, the credit penetration in the country, I think we are looking at 1000x growth than where we are, right? So I'm just saying that, these are the great areas. These are very remunerating areas as well, provided you are able to provide the customer great value. You are able to provide the customer experience, what he's looking at, the simplicity, the clear, because, and I think when you look at, the segments such as, while the youngsters might have adopted technology, but there is a huge segment still not on these financial services on a digital standpoint. They are still relying on rudimentary, the assisted model. So I think the scope is huge in my assessment, and I still believe that, while we keep showing that back to, the financial services startup has gone, I think, 50x or something like that in last 8 years. And I think another 50x is possible, right? Because this is a 1.4 billion population country, right? And when we want to go to that penetration where the developed countries are, I think the opportunity is too much. The second part, Shradha, is the way we look at it, the way Indian stack now start going global, right? All these fintechs now aspire to be global, right? Because we have gone back to UAE, Singapore, Bhutan, the neighboring 7, 8 countries, Thailand. Now the RBI is helping us to talk to Thailand. So I'm saying that when you look at this, all these companies now, it's a natural progression to go and become multinational companies, right? In that sense. So I think the scope is immense on financial services, and not only in India, but wherever we are trying to go, and to create a unique experience. And they have a great advantage, right? They are Indian companies, they are connected in India, so they are already ready. They are already on that stack. They are already providing that experience. I think it's just a matter of replicating back outside.
I'm going to put you on spot. मेरा एक last question से पहले एक और question है. We have most of the unicorns in the startup space, if you see, are from fintech. And there is this thing that land grabbing has already been done, because if you have scale, you have users, then every fintech, if you see today, they are becoming platform. वो insurance tech, lending tech, पता नहीं क्या, everything they are doing, and phenomenally, I hope, well. With that also, would you say that there are opportunities?
No, of course there are, because that's what I'm saying. If we are saying that payments, forget the financial services, we are talking about 1000x growth. If the payments 10x growth is there, I'm saying there is, it's open ground. And again, let me tell you, Shradha, the digital world, the way technology is improving and technology is changing, you can't believe that your position will remain as is if you stop innovating. If you stop innovating, so you have to keep changing, right? And what happens in GPT-4 came in, and what happens on how it's going to impact your search. So I'm saying that the moment, and there is a simple reason for that, because once the consumer is digital, the switching cost is almost like a zero, right? So the moment you are not able to keep on innovating, keep on increasing the experience, switching cost is like near zero, right? And the consumer will look at the best. I'm saying that consumer is the king, right? This is what we hear. So typical economics lesson. So somebody who's very high volume, high value, including UPI, I must say that we don't believe in NPCI that this high volumes will stay forever in UPI unless we keep innovating, unless we keep on keep on creating new fintechs, new startups, keep on creating new features. I believe the consumer is going to go somewhere else, right? So I think there is a huge opportunity to everybody, and including to UPI to keep growing.
मुझे तो लगता है UPI is a सुरक्षा कवच. UPI is ubiquitous. UPI is something that we all use and will continue to use, because it has changed our lives and how. You are in the business of money and transaction. I want to ask you, what is your relationship with money, and what does money mean to you?
Again, this is a very tough question.
Arey, come on.
See, look, I'm just saying that, when you look at what is the money you require to live a very satisfied life, I think, obviously, you need a reasonable money. But, that reasonableness is very different from each one of us, right? And it's very important that you define early in life, right? Because otherwise, what happens is when you keep growing, and, and when I see this, and I see this in techies big time, right? एक जन 30% दे रहा है, मैं उधर चला गया. दूसरा जन 30% दे रहा है, मैं उधर चला गया, right? And I'm saying that, you don't build the character, you don't build that authenticity in your as a professional, right? And my request to all the techies who are attending here is, it takes time to build expertise. It takes time for the ecosystem to recognize your character, your professionalism. So I think it's very important to have the clear mind that what is the reasonable value you need to create? What is the reasonable, and bolte hai na, matlab, what, you're not going to take money up, right? So I'm just saying that, and if your family, your kids, if they need your money, then whatever you leave is not sufficient, right? So that's what I believe, very simplistically. Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much. A
Thank you.
big round of applause to you. Dilip, thank you. This is brilliant.